Hi, everybody, and welcome to Scaling a Scale Up, how Wise grew to 10 million customers and what's next. I'm Nilan. I'm the VP Growth here at Wise. I've been here for 9 years, and I look after our product teams here at Wise. And I'm really excited today to have Emily Tate here with me, the Managing Director of Mind the Product, who'll be fielding some of your questions and her own to me at the end of this session. Hi, Emily. How are you doing?
Hi, Nilan. I'm doing well and happy to be here.
Cool. So let's kick this off. Cool. That was cool. It's a bit of a whirlwind through the last 10 years. But taking you back to the very beginning, why was Wise started? Like all startups, we've got a kind of an apocryphal founding story. These are our founders. That's Tarvet there, and that's Christo next to him. And 10 years ago, they founded Wise, and they founded it to solve their own problem. Christo was he was living in London and paying a mortgage in Estonia. And each time he sent £1,000 to pay the mortgage, he lost £50 in a fee hidden in the exchange rate. Tarvet was living in Estonia and sending his savings through to London. And each time he sent £1,000, he also lost £50 in a fee hidden in the exchange rate. So they were pretty bummed about this, and they met each other and they talked it through, and they found a pretty neat way to solve this. Christo started putting money into Tarvet's savings account, and Tarvet started putting money into Christo's mortgage. That way, no money ever crossed borders, and they both saved £50. Now, the cool thing is that that's how banks move money internationally. When you send money from the US to the UK, the bank doesn't put it on the boat and send your dollars over the Atlantic. What's really happening is billions and billions of pounds and dollars are getting netted off every day between bank accounts around the world. And that's what we built at Wise. And today we're moving more than 4.5 billion pounds a month. Probably more importantly, we're saving our customers more than £1 billion a year. We have more than 10 million customers worldwide. And we've grown a bit more from our beginnings with just the two founders. We've now got 2,200 people working for Wise around the world in 16 offices globally. And over half of us Wises are on a visa. We're kind of an international product built for international people by international people. But probably the stat I'm most proud of is that evangelism is the biggest driver of our growth. Well, what do I mean by that? When you look back at this slide, that blue line is our user growth. The green line is illustrative, but it shows how many users joined Wise after hearing about Wise from a friend. And it's about 70% of our users last month joined Wise after hearing about Wise from a friend. So how do we understand why are people recommending us, and how do we make this happen? Well, quite simply, we ask our customers this question: why would you recommend Wise to your friends? And then we give them a scale between 1 and 10, and we ask them to kind of at one end of the scale they don't agree, they're not going to recommend Wise to their friends. At the other end of the scale, at 10, they're going to recommend Wise to their friends. So through asking this question over the years, we've kind of noticed the relationship here. So when when customers give us between a 1 or a 5 on this scale, they don't really recommend us to anyone. But once they start giving us a 6 to a 7, they're recommending us to a few people. If we manage to improve their experience, so they're no longer giving us a 7, they're giving us an 8, they double the number of people they tell about Wise. And if we improve it even further and we kind of exceed their expectations, they may give us a 10, they double again the number of people they're telling about Wise. So this is pretty cool. If we can figure out how to do things that make people happier and more likely to recommend, then we'll grow faster. And this makes sense. So why doesn't everyone do this? Well, taking a step back, when we first launched Wise, we just focused on just making sure it worked. That took a ton of work. Then we got it to work and fixed all the underlying issues. That also was pretty hard. We then focused on making it slick and improving it. And most people stop here at this point in their product development journey. There's very few people that take their products a step further and really blow off their customers' socks by creating experiences that their customers didn't believe were previously possible. And so what is it we actually do in order to do that? Well, when we talk to our customers and understand why they're recommending us, the reason they give us fall into two broad buckets. They're recommending us because of our product, or they're recommending us because of the mission. On the product side, they're saying things like, you got to use Wise because it's fast. You got to use Wise because it's cheap. You got to use Wise because it's easy to use. And the cool thing with these things is that we can measure these things. So banks typically charge, say, 7% to move money internationally. If we charge 6.7%, you might use us, but you wouldn't tell anyone about us. But banks charge 7%, we charge 0.3. So if you're moving £1,000, you're going to save £67. That's worth talking about. With speed now, 34% of our transfers move instantly. No bank is currently offering customers that kind of service. But the coolest thing about this is we don't do this as a growth hack. We do this because it's the right thing to do. And our customers see authenticity in trying to do that. And that's why they talk about our mission. We didn't realize from the beginning that our customers cared about our mission. We thought our mission was something internal, something that motivated us to come to work every day. But that changed about 7 years ago when we sent this email out to our customer base, when we launched with our fast flag symbol. And this email kind of breaks all the rules of marketing. There's no call to action in it. There's no price in it. But this email was our most successful piece of marketing to date. Customers loved this and forwarded it on to their friends, telling them this company is a different kind of company. So what did we do in that email? We just shared our mission with our customers. And our mission is really simple: to take price all the way down to near zero as possible, take speed to instant, and take convenience to a touch of a button. Great. So that's how we grow, and that's where we're going. How far are we away from mission complete today? Well, every quarter, we share with our entire customer base and our investors a mission update, which is our progress on achieving the mission. And I'm going to take you through our last mission update really briefly. So how are we progressing on price? As you can see there, during 2019, our average price actually went up across some routes. And that was driven by our costs growing faster than our volume. We put a lot of controls in place around that, and I've been working really hard to bring prices down. And in Q4 2020, they started to drop again, which is an amazing result. On to speed. 34% of our transfers are now moving instantly, and 81% of our transfers now settle within 24 hours. On to coverage. In which countries can you use your Wise account from? Well, we've come a long way from the 2 countries we started off with. We've now started to light up most of the world. In fact, into 80% of the world's bank accounts now, you can pay money into with Wise. but we still have a long way to go to take our Wise account to the whole world. And what about our products? Well, our products are driven around the core problems that we're solving. Sending money across borders is slow, expensive, and hard to do. International bank accounts don't really exist today. And the underlying infrastructure that moves money internationally hasn't really been upgraded since the 70s. We solve these problems with our three products. Wise Transfer, the world's best money transfer service. The Wise Account, the world's most international account. And the Wise Platform, where we embed the magic of Wise into businesses and banks. And all of this is powered by the Mission Machine, our infrastructure that settles money instantly at a really low marginal cost. So what does this product look like in the hands of our consumers? Well, for Wise Transfer, we have our Send Money product, the Wise Account that you're all hopefully familiar with. And with the Wise Platform, what we realize is that not everyone in the world is going to download our app. We need to be in the platforms where payments are happening today. And those are platforms like Xero, the accounting platform, or banks like Monzo. And we've taken the Wise experience and embedded it directly within those apps. So what's on the roadmap and what's coming up? If you were to join us and to work with us on this mission, what could you be working on? With Wise Transfer, we're working on sending money to people without knowing their banking information and adding a few more currency routes. You may have noticed we've changed our name to Wise, and that's because we do so much more now for our customers than just transfers. And with our Wise account, we've got over 3 billion in balances today, and our customers have got a long list of features they'd like us to build. This is what's next on the list. From enabling our customers to earn a return on their investment, through to new invite rewards, simpler and quicker onboarding. We're going live with virtual cards shortly. And for businesses, we've got a bunch of really cool features coming up. Businesses really love our Wise account. About 40% of businesses on Wise use their Wise account in the last month. And for businesses, we're rolling out approvals and customer roles and multiple business cards at the moment. We're taking the Wise account to more countries and making debits and account details available in more countries around the world. More on that shortly. And finally, onto the Wise platform. We're already live with Monzo N26 up, and we have partnerships live with Go Cardless, Xero, and Emburse, the expense management platform. But we have 16 new partnerships in the works so watch this space to hear updates. Okay, great. So that's kind of taken us through a little bit around from a mission perspective, how far we are. And so, but where are we overall on the journey? So let's take a big giant step back. Last year, consumers and small businesses moved £2 trillion internationally. They spent 180 billion in fees that we could have saved them through moving it for a much lower cost. So how much of that volume is on Wise today, and how much of those savings have been realized? We're only 2.5% done. So we have a long way to go. So what's our biggest challenge? At this stage, with 2,200 people, is maintaining speed. And I'll let you into a secret. Our secret sauce is our culture, which we define as whatever helps us move forward faster towards achieving the mission. So how did this scale? How do we do this? Well, this was really easy back in 2012. We set ourselves up in autonomous teams. So we had 3 teams, each focused on customer problems, and they had KPIs that measured, like, how good a job they were doing on those customer problems. And these 3 teams, every quarter, they'd sit down together and they talk through, this is our plan for the next quarter. And they feedback on each other's plans, and then they'd lock the plans and they'd go off and they'd work on it. And this worked well in 2014 when we had 7 teams. It worked pretty well in 2016 when we had 17 teams. 2018, you can imagine now, it took 2 whole days for each team to walk through its plans and get feedback from other teams, share its learnings, and then lock their plans and move forward. And then you come on towards this year where we've got 70+ teams, and that just doesn't work anymore. So A year and a bit ago, we organized ourselves into tribes. The dark blue circles on the slides there are our product tribes, and our teams sit within tribes. So we have a business tribe that focuses on the needs of our business customers, a regional expansion tribe that has engineers all around the world that takes Wise into new markets and into new infrastructure, a financial crime tribe that keeps the bad guys out, a spend and cards tribe that takes plastic to the world, and a customer journey tribe that builds the Wise user experience. So that's great in theory. How does it work in practice? And how does it feel like to work at Wise? So I'm going to introduce you to some of my friends. This here is the investments team. This is the team that is launching our investments product. The cool thing about this team is that I think it was just 2 people maybe 6 months ago. And those 2 people really stumbled on the investments product through talking to customers. So from our Wise account, as I mentioned, like as customers started storing more and more money with us, in fact, 3 billion with us, they kind of started complaining that holding money in Wise, there's an opportunity cost of doing that because they could be earning a return if they held the money somewhere else. So they asked us, could you solve that problem for us? And I'm excited that so the investment team, they looked at that problem and they tried to figure out how can we solve that. And they developed this long-term vision for our customers where they could invest their money without moving the money between accounts and know precisely how much where their money was being invested and how much they were being charged, and a couple more secret things that we can't unveil yet. But that team, through talking to customers, came up with this proposition. They built this idea. It had the support of the broader organization around it, and hopefully we'll be launching this shortly to our customers around the world. So through that story, I kind of like hope that illustrates how I think about Wise. It's like working at a startup in one of these teams within a scale-up. So let's just take a moment to contrast the difference between working in a startup and working in a startup within a scale-up like Wise. Well, working in a startup has a lot of benefits. Startups are usually purpose-driven. You have a lot of autonomy. You can move really fast, and bureaucracy just doesn't exist yet. But there's some downsides. Startups aren't financially sustainable. They need injections of cash to keep going. They're high risk. They may never get to a business model and may one day end up being worth nothing. 80% of startups fail. And also, there's no real support for you when you're starting out. On the HR, legal, or compliance side, you end up doing that all yourself. If you're working at a startup within a scale-up, somewhere like Wise, we're still purpose-driven. You still get the autonomy. You still get the speed. We're trying to minimize the bureaucracy within your team, but we're also sustainable. We've been profitable for 3 years. The risk is less that it's all going to be worth nothing, as we've kind of proven the model to date. And we've built up some great centralized teams that can support our product teams as they continue to build out Wise globally. So kind of like begun to think about Wise as a Goldilocks kind of company, where if you're looking for your next career and you think, or your next step in your next job that you're looking for, and you're looking at startups and you think it's just a bit too small to make a difference in the world, and you look at corporations and you think, yeah, they're having a massive impact, the big tech companies, but I'm just a small cog in a big machine. And we kind of think of Wise as just right, where you're working within your team, you're empowered with your own startup where you're trying to solve a customer problem, and you've got the support of this larger organization around you. So what startups are we building next? I'm really excited to share with you today or really to tease our public product roadmap. We're going to be sharing this shortly on our website. And here it is. So we've got our tribes there: business, customer journey, financial crime, spending cards, and regional expansion. And what you can see there is what we're building now. That's what teams are working on, and what we hope to build next, and what's in the backlog for later. So looking at there, you can see our successful launch of our Wise cards in Japan that just went live, or virtual cards getting rolled out, the changes we made to the homepage to help customers understand everything they can do in Wise. But there's also like some pretty meaty projects in there, like generating interest on customers' balances, or optimizing the money flow through balances to reduce costs. And if any of these take your fancy, do reach out to us afterwards. We'll be going deeper into the product roadmap in April, where Stuart Gregory, our product lead for Wise Business and Wise Platform, and Sharon Keane, our product lead for regional expansion, will be taking you through our roadmap and a bit more. Okay, and that's it from me. I'm going to stop sharing and bring Emily on. Hi there, Emily. How did you find that?
Yeah, that's great. I love hearing the story behind Wise. I think it's as an expat myself, something that I feel very keenly. So it's great to see where you've come. I know a lot of people here are probably people that are thinking about working for Wise or working with Wise. And some may be a little bit concerned about the size of the company. So I know you kind of mentioned it as that in-between stage between the startup and the large companies. I've spent a lot of time working with big companies and have been burned out by the corporate bureaucracy in the past. And at 2,200 employees, you're starting to get into that large company territory. How is Wise different from those other large companies?
I think it's definitely something we've obsessed about since the early days. And I think one of the things we thought a lot about is like, is slowing down inevitable? Does it just happen as a function of size? And I think one of the things that we've tried to be pretty ruthless on is only to introduce things into the org that will centrally, that helps us move faster. And we ultimately define our culture as that way. Like if something helps us move faster then towards achieving the mission, then it's something that we should keep on doing. And that's why we've ended up with this model of teams that are startups that can move really agile and really quickly within a scale up that can support it.
Great. And you talked about some of the downsides of startups, particularly being some instability in your future. But one of the primary benefits of a startup is the ability to get options and get some of that ownership. How does Wise compare in that realm?
That's a great question. We give options to everybody working at Wise, whether you join into our customer support team, our office team, or you're an engineer. Everybody gets options in Wise.
That's great. So you also talked a lot about empowered teams and this mission-led thinking being a big part of Wise's culture and its plan for speed and the way to maintain that speed. I know being in the tech industry, I see talk of other particularly growing fintech companies that have gone more the direction of kind of top-down, hyper-focused movement in order to achieve speed. Why do you think that the philosophy of empowered teams will deliver speed better than the top-down model?
It's a great question. I guess I don't know if it's gonna deliver speed better. What I've observed is that kind of like in early stage companies, a founder can be everywhere and can micromanage quite efficiently a product organization to achieve their vision. And a founder can scale a team pretty large through kind of micromanaging. But there's a point that comes, like when you're at 2,200 people and 60 teams, it's pretty hard to stay on top of everything that's going on and be able to prescriptively define exactly what success looks like. So I believe the level of parallelism that we're building should enable us to continue to accelerate at scale. And having built that from an early stage means that we should be able to maintain it as we continue to grow.
Great. So let's talk a little more about the roadmap and the things that you're building. As I mentioned, I am a Wise customer myself, American expat in London, and there is a lot of discussion within the expat community about tools to help enable dealing in multiple currencies. And Wise, formerly TransferWise, has been recommended a lot. And there has recently been some discussion around the competitiveness of the rates and comments and criticism that your rates may not be as competitive as they used to be. You acknowledge this showed rates went up and that they're starting to come back down. Do you think you'll be able to continue to drive those down? And how does that play in the market?
Well, Emily, it's good to get like real live feedback from a customer, I guess. Um, it's a good question. As I kind of mentioned, our rates went up because our cost grew faster than our than our than our volume, and we've since made changes to make that much harder for that to happen. But that doesn't stop competitors from, and they could be small competitors like startups that just discount their products and give it away for free and lose money, or large competitors that may run a promotion where they're cheaper on a route for a month or two. And what we tell our customers is to shop around. In fact, we recommend them to use our competitors. We've got a comparison service that recommends what's the cheapest service to use, and we totally recommend that our customers use the cheapest service for at the point in time. However, I think in the long run, it's whoever can move money at the lowest marginal cost that will win in the market, and will kind of, and customers will they'll eventually have the lowest price, and customers will eventually come to them. And as long as we kind of stay focused on driving the cost down, we should eventually build this infrastructure that settles money cheaply and instantly, and hopefully have the lowest prices in the long term.
That's great. So another thing that I noticed, and it's a big reason behind the rebranding to begin with, is obviously you're expanding into a lot of other verticals and diversifying what Wise is doing as a company. Being in tech, I've seen a lot of companies that started off being really great in their category, and then as they started expanding and moving into new things, quality overall suffered, both in the product and in the team and the working environment. Are you concerned about this with all of the things that you're doing, and how are you working to avoid that?
That's a great question. It's definitely one that keeps me up at night. So this need to do more stuff, for us, it comes from our customers who have this really long list of things they want us to do. And then, so I guess you could think it's quite easy to solve this. You just hire lots of engineers, and then you're off and you solve it. But really, what we found is you can hire engineers pretty quickly, but it's much harder to onboard them into Wise, into building high quality products. And to do that, you need to have leads, you need to have product managers, you need to have designers, and the rate at which you can grow these teams is a lot slower. And so I think maintaining quality is really around slowing down the rate at which we build our teams, so that we're able to build teams that are able to build high quality products.
Great. So as you think about those empowered teams, there are a lot of companies out there that claim that they have empowered teams. And I know a lot of us are looking for those teams to work within. I see some signals in the things that I've heard you say that make me feel like there's definitely hope that these are actually empowered teams, things like your now, next, later roadmap and some of the language you've used. But how can people actually know that the squads that you've built, the tribes that you've built, do have the autonomy that you claim they do?
It's a really good question. It comes up in every interview that I do. People ask me like, is it for real? And I guess the only way if I was in their shoes, I'd answer it is by talking to people at Wise. So do reach out to people at Wise. You can find them on LinkedIn or on Twitter, or check out reviews on Glassdoor. We don't filter these in any way, and you can really get a pretty rounded picture. Like, this autonomous, highly empowered environment is not for everyone. Like at times, it's sometimes useful having somebody giving you top-down direction, and that rarely happens here. And that can, there's certain kinds of people that thrive in that environment, and others that don't. And so I do recommend reaching out to people that work at Wise, just to get a feel for, is this empowerment really real or not? Because that's the only way I know how to validate it.
Great. And you mentioned some of those downsides. What are the downsides of working in autonomous empowered teams?
It's a really good question. So there's some things that are easier, and there's some things that are harder. So things that are harder are it's pretty hard to get 2,200 people to change direction and move in one direction quickly, because those muscles don't exist. Things like consistency is hard to achieve. Working across team isn't necessarily easy, because these are two different startups, and so like it's quite hard to get startups to collaborate with each other. But on the plus side, so these are with any organization side, you'll have pros and cons. What you get is ownership. You kind of get speed. You get autonomy in decision making, and that trade-off kind of works for us.
Great. So you're hiring pretty quickly. I know you're trying to kind of manage that with the rate that you can onboard, but a lot of concerns I hear people have when they're looking for new jobs is, sure, the environment is great right now, but if you're hiring over 100 people in the next year, that's naturally going to shift culture in some way. How are you thinking about maintaining the culture you have now as you continue to grow?
It's a good question. It's definitely something I personally put a lot of time into. Again, I think the only thing that does that is so one of our leads called it passing the baton. So we kind of built the team with 100 people, and they could pass the baton on to another 100. And then you need to wait till they really got it clearly in their hands before they pass it on again. And I really do believe that just slowing the rate of growth down in terms of hiring, to the level at which you can develop leaders internally that are able to hire and onboard people, or hire people in externally and onboard them. And these two we find are the limiting factors on our growth, and that's really where I spend a lot of my time.
That's really great. Well, that's all the questions that I think we have time for at this point, but I'm really excited about the future of Wise and wish you all the best.
Great, Emily, thanks very much for the questions. And everybody who's joined on the stream, thanks again for your questions. I'll be getting to them shortly, and see you all soon, hopefully.